learned judges or lawyers, or for that matter any person, can refer to what exactly the law says by referring to something known as the Indian Contracts Act of 1872. Now, criminal cases are generally treated under the IPC, which is the Indian Penal Code, or the CRPC, the Criminal Procedures Code. But when we talk about torts, what book do we refer to? What set of statutes do we refer to? Is there an act which tells me what exactly are the laws laid for torts? Well, to be honest, there is no such written act or code or anything like the Indian Act for Torts or the Indian Tort Act or the Tort Code or anything. But it is a basic set of principles which are understood as part of common sense by everybody. So there are some basic rules which any common reasoning man can understand, and based on those principles of common sense, we try to understand how exactly we go about solving cases of torts. So, to have a little bit of a technical definition of what exactly is a tort, take a look at this. It says a tort is a wrongful act for which someone can be sued for damages in a civil court. So, we have to understand what is meant by damages. We will talk about the term damages in a short while. But the prime takeaway from this definition is you are looking forward for some sort of compensation. And it generally falls under the purview of civil courts. Now, tort laws technically is a body of law that provides remedies for civil wrongs that do not arise out of contractual duties. So, if it is a criminal wrong, then it falls under the purview of the criminal laws. If it is a civil wrong, again you need to check, is it bound by the contract law? If yes, it falls under a different category. But if it is about duties which do not fall under the contract law but nevertheless have been violated, then it can come under the purview of torts. So, how do we understand whether it is a crime or a tort? One basic way of doing it is by checking whom has the wrongdoing affected. A tort generally affects the interest of an individual. In Latin, we use the term rights in persona. So an individual has certain rights, and if that individual's right is harmed, but it generally does not affect the society at large, then it could be called a tort. For example, if somebody insults me in public, the person insulting me has damaged my reputation. He may have defamed me, but his words are generally not going to affect the third party or stranger who is walking on the street. And hence, such a thing can fall under the purview of torts. On the other hand, the crime affects the society at large. And one of the classic examples, if I were to ask any student, can you talk about a crime? Can you tell me the example or the name of a crime? The first thing which pops in our mind is murder, right? We never talk about petty things like theft or arson or robbery. We are so fascinated with murder. So we all know that murder falls under the category of a crime. Now, why does murder fall under the category of a crime? Well, if let us say I get murdered at night in my sleep. Now, somebody might argue, okay, you are murdered, how does it affect the others? Take a look at it in this manner. Supposing a stranger living in my society comes to know that I have been murdered in my sleep. This instills a fear in him that that which has happened to me can also happen to him some other day, right? If you hear about the news of the murder of a person, immediately there is some sort of fear or depression or some negative feeling which comes into our mind. We are basically afraid. So, such a thing, because it affects the society at large, is called a crime. But it is not that if it is a tort, it cannot be a crime, or if it is a crime, it cannot be a tort. There are certain category of offences which can be classified under both torts and crimes. And a classic example of that would be the assault. Now, we will take a look at what exactly the word assault means in detail. But hurting somebody intentionally or putting somebody in the fear of physical hurt is generally what we define assault as. And this can be categorized under both torts and crimes. So keep in mind that when we talk about the criminal law, we are talking about giving punishment to the offender. On the other hand, when you talk about civil law, we generally talk about some sort of a compensation for the victim. So, for the same act, if you want to understand whether it's going to be under criminal law or civil law, just try to find out what is the outcome that you desire, or what is the outcome which can be possible. If the law talks about giving punishment to the offender, then it would be talking in terms of criminal laws. On the other hand, if the judgment is all about compensation to the victim, if it is all about restoring the lost rights of the victim, then it would fall under the purview of civil laws. So again, this is one basic way of understanding whether we are talking about civil laws or criminal laws. So two things. Is it affecting the rights of the individual, in which case civil, or is it affecting the rights of the society at large, known as rights in rem, in which case it is criminal. Similarly, if it is punishment, then criminal. If it is compensation, then generally it is civil. But these are not hard and fast rules. These are just basic guidelines for us to understand the difference between civil and criminal laws.